Right friends, welcome back to newspaper editorials discussion, and there are 5 articles, and out of 5 I think 2 articles we will go in detail way. The first one is growth with the caveats, and the center must pay heed to RBI Governor Urjit Patel's plain speak. Here this is about monetary policy, and we are going to deliberate in detail about monetary policy. And 3 important aspects, if you look at any country, 3 important aspects are: one is fiscal policy, second one is monetary policy, third one is structural deficiencies in the system, structural bottlenecks, what you call it. The first one is fiscal policy. Fiscal policy is looked after by the Ministry of Finance, and this is basically the imposition of taxes as well as expenditure. So, the gap between expenditure and revenue, what we call fiscal deficit, we talk about fiscal deficit as percentage of GDP. So, this is exactly what we look at it. So, this is fiscal deficit and fiscal policy. So, here the items pertaining to taxes as well as expenditure, whether it goes to capital or it goes to revenue, that means the expenditure is for creation of assets or not. All these things will be discussed here in this fiscal policy. Monetary policy. Monetary policy main aim is, in a nutshell, to preserve the intrinsic value of rupee. The value of rupee must be protected, or in other words, inflation must be controlled. As we have discussed in the previous lecture, inflation target is given by the government to RBI, and the main purpose of this monetary policy is to preserve the intrinsic value of rupee, or you can say the value of rupee must be protected. The value of rupee can be protected only when inflation is in control. When the price rise is in control, then only the value of rupee can be ensured. And structural bottlenecks in the system. You see, in spite of best fiscal policy or best monetary policy, countries cannot grow when inherent bottlenecks are there. You may have a doubt, what are the bottlenecks? Inadequate infrastructure, roads with potholes, decayed infrastructure, age-old railway system, at the same time no post-harvesting methods, no food processing facilities, no cold storage facilities. These are all examples of structural deficiencies in the system. So, to eliminate these structural deficiencies, governments talk about investment in infrastructure. So, 3 things we talk about. One is fiscal policy, how to ensure maximum capital expenditure so that it will create assets. Second point is how to strike a balance between inflation and growth, or you can say how to control inflation without hurting the growth, or you can say striking a balance between growth and inflation, so as to protect the intrinsic value of rupee, and money circulation will come into picture in monetary policy. So, if somebody is talking about monetary policy, what makes a difference is money circulation in the system. If money circulation is squeezed, then automatically money availability will be reduced and interest will increase, right. So, automatically then the inflation can be controlled. If more money is available, then interest will be reduced, and here easy money will be available, and that may lead to inflation. So, it all talks about money circulation. Third one is structural bottlenecks in the system, right. Having learned this, let us come back to monetary policy. Monetary policy, as I have already told you, to protect the value of rupee, and here it involves reserve ratios. How much percentage of money, how much percentage should be in the form of gold, government securities. Banks have to keep certain percentage aside. You may have a doubt, what is the need for this? Why the banks are required to keep certain things aside? banks are required to keep certain things aside because of the reason to ensure solvency and liquidity in the banking system. Banks should not collapse. At the same time, banks should be in a position to pay back to the customers as and when I want money. So, to ensure liquidity, to ensure solvency, these two are important. Policy rates, this determine interest rate structure. When interest rate structure is more, when interest rate is more, then credit offtake will reduce. When interest rate is less, people will borrow more. That is why it will propel growth. So, this policy rates are pertaining to basically interest rate structure, and open market operations are by buying and selling securities. Reserve Bank of India monitors the availability of money in the system, right. So, these three are the tools of monetary policy. Reserve ratios, I have already told you, CRR, then SLR. At present, CRR is 4%, SLR is 20.5%. There is no change in yesterday's monetary policy. I have listed here what is the purpose of CRR, what is the purpose of SLR. Basically, certain percentage is to be kept aside in cash form with the special account with RBI, that is the CRR, and SLR is to be kept in the form of either cash, gold or approved securities. And if CRR is decreased by 1%, here the CRR is 4%. If it is decreased by 1%, lot of money will flow into the banking system. So, circulation of money will increase, which may give rise to inflation. Growth may take place, but inflation may also take place. Common man will be affected. If CRR is increased by 1% to 5%, money will be squeezed out of the system, and because of which what happens, interest rates will increase and ultimately it will affect growth. So, the RBI has to strike a balance between inflation and growth. Then policy rates, repo rate, reverse repo rate. Here repo rate is at present 6.25%, reverse repo rate is increased to 6%. So, 0.25% is increased in reverse repo, and you may have a doubt for what purpose these two are. Repo rate is when banks are borrowing for day-to-day needs from RBI. When banks are borrowing for liquidity problems on day-to-day basis from RBI, then they charge interest, that is the charge 6%. And when banks have got surplus money on any single day, then they will park that money with RBI, and for that purpose RBI pay interest. So, that is reverse repo rate. And marginal standing facility, there is a limit for banks borrowing from RBI under repo. So, under these circumstances, there is another window available, that is marginal standing facility. So, first one is repo, banks will borrow, then at higher rate of marginal standing facility banks will borrow, and even if that is exhausted, they will go to the friendly bank for borrowing. Syndicate bank may go for Bank of Baroda may go for State Bank of India. So, that is the call rate or call money rate, what you call. So, to reduce the volatility in the call money market, to reduce the volatility, to prevent exploitation in the call money market, Reserve Bank of India kept repo rate and marginal standing facility, these two, right. Bank rate is, that is the rate for long term lending, not for short term, right. Then where do they stand? Here repo rate is at present 6.25% and reverse repo rate is a 6%, and MSF and bank rate is 6.5%. So, 0.25%, which is known as 25 basis points in banking parlance, right. Then open market operations, RBI sells bonds if it wants to suck excess liquidity, and at the same time RBI purchases bonds in the market, government bonds, and it infuses liquidity. So, these are known as open market operations. So, these are the tools under monetary policy, and please do not forget there are two terms, dovish monetary policy, another one is hawkish monetary policy. What is the meaning of dovish monetary policy? Dovish monetary policy is if the actions of Reserve Bank are in tune for more money circulation. If more money circulation is allowed by RBI, that monetary policy is dovish monetary policy. Look into this. If CRR is reduced to 3%, if CRR is reduced to 3% from existing 4%, 90,000 crores of rupees will flow into the banking system, because the bank deposits as on date are around 90 lakh crores of rupees. So, 90,000 crores of rupees will flow into the banking system, and when 90,000 crores of rupees flow into the banking system, what will happen? People will borrow money, interest rates will come down, more credit offtake will be there, and because of which more demand for goods will be created, and hence more production will be there, and hence GDP will grow. But the point is, with the dovish monetary policy, it may lead to inflation, right? Next one is hawkish monetary policy. This is less money in circulation. Hawkish monetary policy is less money in circulation. So, these things please do not forget, and two things please do not forget. I told in the previous discussion, two things from preliminary examination point of view are very important. Government notified inflation target of 4% plus or minus 2% valid up to March 2021. Another important aspect is, by amendments to RBI Act 1934, government made 6-member monetary policy committee, 3 belongs to Reserve Bank of India, 3 external members, and here the casting vote in case of tie lies with the governor. So, if there is a tie, 3 votes tie, then Reserve Bank of India governor exercises the casting or final vote, right. So, this is about monetary policy committee, right. You learnt about what is monetary policy. Now, let us come back to the present news item. Policy repo rate is 6.25%, reverse repo rate is 6%, marginal standing facility 6.5%, bank rate 6.5%, we deliberated, CRR 4%, SLR 20.5%, there is no change in these rates. Reverse repo rate is increased by 0.25%. I told you in the previous lecture why they have increased. They have increased because banks are flush with a lot of liquidity or money. So, if they park with the Reserve Bank of India, then they will get 6% interest now instead of 5.75% previously. So, this is one important aspect. And salient points of monetary policy on 6th April. Reverse repo increased, I have already told you. The marginal change is aimed at sucking out excess liquidity from the system. Then they are also going to propose another new liquidity management tool to suck out the surplus liquidity. Now, banks are not able to identify, or you can say not able to decide what to do with excess money with them. They are with excess liquidity of rupees 4 lakh crores, they are not able to decide what to do. Then second point is, inflation is expected to climb to 5% by the second half of the fiscal. Inflation, the target is 4% ideally, though 2% band is given, but ideally it is 4%, but it is expected to reach 5% by second half of the fiscal. Then next point is, achieving the stated target of 4% even next year also challenging, and there will be one time upside risk. Upside risk means there are risks which may enhance something. So, here upside risk of inflation. So, upside risk of inflation means inflation is expected to increase. So, there is a one time upside risk to inflation with the implementation of goods and services tax, and this time there will not be any lucky disinflationary forces. Lucky disinflationary forces like this commodity prices as well as oil prices, they are increasing now. So, there will not be any luck factor which is going to be available in 2017. And the other point is gross value added. We discussed several times what is the difference between GVA and GDP. Gross value added is expected to be 7.4% in 2017-18, which is the positive figure. Then a rebound in discretionary consumer spending. Rebound means increase. Increase in consumer spending is expected because of the remonetization. What is remonetization? Government has withdrawn 500,000 rupee notes, that is demonetization. Opposite is remonetization, that means they are bringing new notes, that is remonetization. Then investment demand is also expected on account of lowered interest rates. I got my own doubt on this. Investment demand is not taking off, and the GDP outlook for emerging market economies is improving on global scale. And look at 4 key challenges. There are 4 key challenges. One is bad loans. We discussed several times about this. This is a twin balance sheet problem. One is corporates are suffering, at the same time banks are suffering. There are several reasons for it, and we discussed about reasons also. And this is serious problem of bad loans is to be solved. Then second important aspect is small savings schemes rates are to be corrected. This is a very, very important aspect. You may have a doubt. What are small savings schemes? Please look into this. These are examples of small savings schemes. The money is maintained as a separate account which is known as public account. So, here there is the small savings schemes, there is Sukanya Samruddhi, there is Senior Citizens Savings Scheme, Public Provident Fund, National Savings Certificate. They are enjoying interest rates of some of them more than 8%, and please remember these figures are for January March 2017. From 2017 April 1 onwards, they are reduced by 0.1%. So, the highest interest rate for Sukanya Samruddhi and Senior Citizens Savings Scheme stand at 8.4% as on date, right, and this is the highest interest rate for small savings, and the interest rates are revised once in 3 months by the Ministry of Finance. So, small savings schemes interest rates are to be reduced. Why banks are asking for this? Because of the reason when small savings rates are around 8% or 8.4%, and when bank interest rates are 7%, 6.5%, who will deposit in banks? So, the interest rate differential, or you can say interest rate arbitrage between small savings schemes and bank deposit rates must be reduced. So, that is the second most important point. Otherwise, banks deposits will be affected badly. Third point is capital infusion. When the demand for loans increases, banks require more and more capital. What is meant by capital? Capital is their own money, not our money. Banks require more capital. So, government announced rupees 10,000 crore as capital. It is not sufficient because the banks are required to maintain 9% capital adequacy ratio, and to maintain that the capital base is to be increased, and as the public sector banks, the main shareholder is government. So, government has got responsibility for recapitalizing public sector banks more and more than this rupees 10,000 crore. Loan waivers. loan waivers is not the right solution, and that may lead to this agrarian, that may lead to, in fact, let me tell you once again, that may lead to spoiling the credit culture. It will be moral hazard. So, these 4 things please do not forget as flagged as the challenges. That is why in the nomenclature itself the editorial sees that caveats, CAVEATS, and there are some caveats also which may come in the way of growth. Right friends, we will end here. And another important decision is banks are allowed to invest in real estate investment trusts, infrastructure investment trusts. This is one important decision. Then second one is friendship is a flowing river. This article is written by the Prime Minister of Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina. We deliberated several aspects during the past 2 days, and I would like to spend 3 to 4 minutes on this. She arrived in India and 4 days she is going to stay. She captioned this as friendship is a flowing river. Probably this points towards Teesta river water deal. Teesta river water deal, she needed it badly, because if she goes back without any concrete breakthrough, she will not be appreciated by at least a part of Bangladesh population. They are very much behind this Teesta water deal. Remaining issues are not that major, and Bangladesh, it has got boundaries with the 5 states in our country, and West Bengal shares the longest border. And I told various aspects, official language Bengali and national anthem written by Rabindranath Tagore. Then I told 2 prominent persons yesterday at the time of this Bangladesh liberation war, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. He is the father of present Prime Minister, and he along with around 17 family members were assassinated on 15th August 1975, and at that time the present Prime Minister was away in foreign country along with her sister. So, she escaped that. Only 2 family members escaped and all other members were assassinated on 15th August 1975. She mentioned in the article also. So, Sheikh Hasina is the daughter of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, and 2 rivals there, or one is the daughter, the other one is the wife, right. So, I told yesterday 3 issues. One is the defense budget. They are dependent on China. That is actually not the thing which is positive for India, because Bangladesh is more and more dependent on China for their hardware, defense hardware needs. Second one is here the opposition feels that the present Prime Minister is genuflecting before India. Yesterday I expressed the meaning of this genuflecting. Third one is Teesta river water, right. Let us come back to this article. Sheikh Hasina, Pakistani military junta started genocide of innocent Bengalis on 25th March 1971. Please do not forget, Bangladesh recently declared March 25 as the genocide day. Bangladesh declared March 25 as the genocide day. In 1970 general elections, Bangladesh got mandate for Awami League, and this was the first time that Bengalis got the mandate to rule Pakistan, the present day Bangladesh I am talking about. Although the population of East Bengal constituted the majority in Pakistan, the Bengali nation was subjected to oppression, and at that time one part is West Pakistan, the other part is East Pakistan, and East Pakistan is predominantly Bengalis, and the West Pakistan resorted to oppression on East Pakistan or present day Bangladesh, right. So, remaining things are given here, and because of the oppression, father of the nation of Bangladesh, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman declared a liberation war of Bangladesh. And important point is, Indira Gandhi was the prime minister at that time, and India stood behind Bangladesh, or you can say East Pakistan, and India helped in the liberation war, and subsequently the Indian support also came in for release of their leader, and at the same time the government is working, the Prime Minister says, because this article is written by the Prime Minister. I have taken these points as stated by the Prime Minister. The government is working to turn Bangladesh into a middle income country by 2021 and a developed country by 2041 in the words of the Prime Minister. And she cited as achievements and more to be done. Achievements she cited: GDP growth of 7.1%, inflation was controlled at around 5%, poverty rate has been reduced to 22%. So, these are the achievements of Bangladesh as stated by the Prime Minister of that country. What needs to be done? Several people are suffering from poverty, malnutrition is another problem, proper Medicare and schooling could not be ensured for all. Education, eradication of poverty should be the first and the foremost priority for the country, and it is difficult to do something in isolation, only collaboration effort are required. So, India and Bangladesh integrating features as written by her. Both India and Bangladesh share culture and heritage. There are several commonalities with specifically West Bengal, similarity in language. Bengali is the language predominantly spoken in Bangladesh. Then both the countries are nourished by the rivers. Several rivers crisscross from India to Bangladesh, and Sundarbans is another common thread. Sundarbans partly in Bangladesh, partly in India. So, there are several common threads, and the friendship between Bangladesh and India is like a flowing river and with full of generosity as stated by the Prime Minister, and these things point towards sharing of Teesta river waters, which is the major bone of contention between both the countries. I will deliberate on Teesta river waters probably in the next lecture or so, and this is as per this article, and she put forth her viewpoint, and whatever we have discussed for the past 3 days is more than sufficient, and we will deliberate on Teesta shortly. Look into the next one. This is in fact a debate. Is there a racism in India? What is meant by racism? Racism means, please look into this, it is the belief that people's qualities are influenced by their race. People's qualities are influenced by the race. If I am white, I am supreme. If you are black, you do not know anything. So, that is the ideology inculcated in the mind, that is the racism. If I am white, I am superior, I know everything. If you are black, you do not know anything and you cannot improve also in spite of the best efforts. So, if that type of thinking is there in the mind, that is racism. So, it is the belief that people's qualities are influenced by their race. And here the important point is, there were some attacks in our country recently on the African students, and here the important point is, there are isolated incidents, around 3-4 incidents occurred, and the one section of society in our country feels that they are isolated, we cannot infer them as racism, and some section says that there is overall problem with, or you can say there is overall some sort of racist element against the black students in our country, African students in our country. Under the circumstances, this assumed a lot of significance. Please go on. I have taken various points from the article yes, there is racism, that is one viewpoint. The second one is no, there is no racism. Third viewpoint is let us take the balanced view, let us educate the people with the rational mentality and behavior. Let us look at the first one. Africans are facing racism in getting accommodation in the country. This is the racist view, or you can say to support the viewpoint that there is racism prevalent in our country. The viewpoint written by one person is Africans are facing racism in getting accommodation in the country. They are not getting accommodation in the country as some people are not coming forward to give houses on rent to African people. Second one is people are being viewed with suspicion. Black people are being viewed with suspicion. This is also evident when Africans seek extension of visas. Normally, extension of visa should not take more than 1 week. Within 1 week that should be settled, but as per this article, he says that it is taking 3 months, 4 months for African students in the form of police verification. Then most landlords come out with an emphatic no. He is talking about the accommodation. Then why do people become aggressive when they see blacks on the streets? When they see black people on the streets, why people become aggressive? Students from Northeast, Dalits, untouchables also face the same problem. As per this article, not only from Africa, people from Northeast, Dalits, they also face the same problem. In Goa, drugs problem is largely due to Europeans and Russians, but why discriminate Africans? Some African countries have better human development indicators than India, and they have robust democracies and don't club everyone. So, the government of India appears to be in denial mode due to the hostility of some Indians. As a result, number of African students coming to India may come down. That is, yes, there is racism viewpoint. No, racism is not there. Please read this viewpoint. It has also got valid points. The sporadic incidents cannot be construed as racist. There are 3-4 incidents. They are isolated. They cannot be construed as racist. Then majority of these incidents have not been motivated by the color of nationalities. The reasons are for the incidents, the reasons are sex, drug trafficking and behavioral patterns. It is a conflict of cultures. He is talking about conflict of cultures, not racism. And here it is a law and order problem, but not racism. Whether the society is racist or becoming racist can be judged by the collective consciousness of the larger masses of the society. So, to decide these things, collective consciousness of the larger masses is required. You cannot isolate. Then it cannot be based on individual incidents, and acceptance is the norm of Indian society. It is inbuilt into the Indian psyche. And India has welcomed the people of different races and creeds, and Indian National Congress participated in anti-apartheid conference in 1927 in Brussels, and India follows Vasudhaika Kutumbakam, which is a whole universe is one family, and Indians embrace victims of religious or racial persecutions also, right? So, Indians are embracing the victims of religious or racial persecutions. And why do we separate some people? Then, racism is based on hatred, which makes a conciliation between people or different groups virtually impossible. Spiritual democracy, please read this. Spiritual democracy is the basis of Indian secularism, and multiculturalism negates the perpetuation of conflicts. So, the final print about this says, we are for Vasudhaika Kutumbakam, At the same time, Indian secularism and multiculturalism negates the perpetuation of conflicts. So, the incidents are isolated, they are sporadic incidents, they does not relate to race, and it is not racism, it is isolated law and order problem. Then balanced view is, why are you digging the past? Think about the present. There are some incidents taking place. Please view with the required attention to be given when you are discussing about the multiculturalism of India. You are digging into the past. Please be in the present. At present, there are some incidents going on, and in the education system, the ideas of false basis of race and racism are almost never touched upon. So, this race and racism must become the part of education system. That means the ill effects of race and racism must be incorporated in the education system and in the domestic sphere. That means in the home environment, it is difficult to influence the attitudes, and only society and educational institutions are the best ways to influence the attitudes. So, please inculcate the sense how to behave with other people in education system itself. Then early education is an important field for providing the basis for independent and critical thought. Then our cities are the places where we increasingly have declining tolerance for strangers. Do we not need an education how to live with the strangers? So, here this balanced view argues, if you are digging into the past, you say that India is a multicultural society, India is with diversity, but look into the present problems, take the balanced view and inculcate the sense properly from the childhood onwards, right. Suicide is not a criminal act. I spend 1 or 2 minutes on this. Suicide is not a criminal act. Finally, after 2 to 3 decades of this issue came to the prominence. This was finally passed by the parliament recently. This is new mental health care bill. It decriminalizes a failed suicide. So, if a person tries to commit suicide and he survives suicide, previously they will be taken up under the law with the penalties and imprisonment up to 1 year. Now, the new one, that means as per the mental health care bill which was passed by the parliament, it is not a criminal act now. So, this is known as decriminalization of suicide. So, section 309 will not apply if a person tries to commit suicide and if he survives. The bill presumes that the person wilted under severe stress and attempted suicide. The new bill reinvents the state in the role of a caregiver to the survivor of the suicidal attempt. So, the government should take care and they should assume the role of a caregiver instead of punishing the person. Then the goal is to prevent the person from trying to the same act once again. The government shall in particular plan, design and implement public health programs to reduce suicides and attempted suicides, right. So, finally, now the suicide became not a criminal act. Ultimately, after 2 to 3 decades of this idea conceived long back. Then raging against insanity. This is about UN treaty to ban atomic weapons be another exercise in futility. Here you see nuclear weapons. Biological weapons were banned. Probably the convention belongs to 1975. Biological weapons were banned. Second one is chemical weapons were also banned with the convention belonging to 1997 or so. So, biological weapons banned, at the same time chemical weapons were banned, and the question here is, why the other class of weapons of mass destruction, that is nuclear weapons, could not be banned. Countries are building up this nuclear weapons to become global superpowers. Almost 90% of these nuclear weapons are with the two countries, Russia and the United States of America. And now a time has come to ban these nuclear weapons also. That is as per this article. News report is a majority of nations, nuclear have-nots. At present, only 9 countries possess nuclear weapons. In the world, only 9 countries possess nuclear weapons. Russia and America possess almost 90%, and India and Pakistan are also the countries possessing nuclear weapons. And a majority of the nations which do not possess nuclear weapons are now negotiating a historic United Nations treaty to ban atomic weapons. Right? So, it demonstrates unprecedented moral leadership on a question that continues to threaten human survival. So, the nuclear weapons, or you can say atomic weapons, are the last remaining category of weapons of mass destruction. As I have already told you, biological weapons are banned under one convention. Chemical weapons were also banned, but it is different story. Now Syria is resorting to use of chemical weapons in spite of ban imposed in 1997. After 2 decades also we are seeing the proliferation of chemical weapons. So here the new focus has rightly shifted attention from the conventional narrative of protection of national sovereignty and security. Why these countries built up nuclear weapons? There are 2 reasons. One is both Russia and America built up these weapons with the aim of becoming global superpowers. In those days it was USSR, but now Russia. So, USA and the then USSR has resorted to this building up of nuclear weapons with the intention of protection of national security and this national sovereignty and security. And if you specifically look at these 2 countries, they have gone for mass scale build up of nuclear weapons basically to become global superpowers, and other countries have resorted to building up these nuclear weapons in the name of national sovereignty and security, and some domestic compulsions also necessitated, right. So, the race for nuclear arms is also in tune with superpower ambitions of some countries. 9 countries possess these atomic weapons. Historical perspective, the issue of banning this nuclear weapons started from 1996. Advisory opinion of International Court of Justice. The International Court of Justice judges ruled that it could not pronounce definitively on the legality or otherwise of the use in circumstances of extreme self-defense. The basic point is, for the proliferation of nuclear weapons, 2 reasons: ambition of becoming global superpower and with the intention of national security and national sovereignty. If all the 9 countries sit together, they can definitely ban these nuclear weapons. Then Vienna also, 150 nations, last such convention was held, 150 nations participated, and subsequently several resolutions of UN General Assembly have affirmed that the use of nuclear weapons constitute a crime against humanity. Right, as I have already told you, biological arms were banned in 1975, chemical weapons were banned in 1997, but why not nuclear weapons? Now, let us hope some better sense will prevail for the major countries of USA and Russia and 7 other countries, whoever are holding these weapons in the name of national sovereignty and national security, and if all the 9 countries sit together, they can come out of this, right, thought provoking article. And with this, let us conclude today's editorial discussion. Please do join at 12:30. We are going to deliberate current affairs banking awareness, and we will once again meet for news of the day and editorial discussion on Monday, and we will cover whatever issues are there on Saturday and Sunday in the Monday session, and tomorrow we will upload this weekend modules. Have a nice day, have a nice weekend. Thank you.